Microsoft has surpassed Apple as the most valuable company or stock market cap.
For me, I see that as a testament of Microsoft's forward-looking and seeing what AI was going to become and has become. So many of the moves that they've made with being an early investor in OpenAI, it's amazing to see the types of investments between Microsoft and throwing NVIDIA. This whole AI revolution is here to stay.
Let's say I'm a content creator or my company creates content. How do I go about monetizing that?
There's actually not much transparency around how certain platforms are performing for individual content creators, or even like podcast views is a pretty like hidden metric that would be interesting in aggregate to sell. There's always different spins of partners within your ecosystem that would be willing to use that data. It's why you see insurance companies want to give you a discount on your insurance bill to put a little tracker device about where you're driving. You're saving 25%, they're making way more than that.
Luke, tell me why AI is not going to completely take over all the jobs.
Because fundamentally, AI is only going to be able to be as truthful as
You're listening to
Welcome to What the Tech, your gateway to business strategies and tech secrets shaping today's workplace. Dave, did you watch that movie with Austin Powers where he's like $1 million? Did you see that? Was it $1 million?
Yeah, Dr. Evil. He does this.
Dr. Evil.
He does this.
You know, I saw something today that just blew me away. Actually, two things. One was that Microsoft has surpassed Apple as the most valuable company or stock market cap.
Yeah.
It surpassed Apple, and it's staying that way now after a couple of weeks. But now the valuation of Microsoft is nearly $3 trillion.
Insane. I you know what? I think I joked when we were looking this up earlier. It's like that's really a number. So
It's
$1
a number.
trillion is 1,000 billion dollars.
So in this case, it would be $3,000 billion.
Can you imagine?
It's an eye-popping number, but think how a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, Microsoft was in a range where the valuation really, the stock price didn't move a lot. It just stayed there. Pandemic came on. They really ramped up with the Microsoft Teams. That really accelerated their growth. And then they invested $1 billion in OpenAI in 2019. So before things got really popping and ChatGPT was launched on the world.
Yep.
And now in retrospect on what they made, what they've made and what they're valued, you know, 3 trillion versus the $1 billion they invested in 2019 seems like chump change now.
I know. And I remember when that was happening in 2019. I forget who our guest. Were we doing the show back then?
No,
Don't
it was
quite recall.
2020, late 2020 when we started
All right.
doing this.
All right. But, you know, we kept reading about Microsoft investing in OpenAI and ChatGPT, and I would certainly say that was a wise investment. I'm sure they had a lot of data before they placed their chips down on the board for that one.
Well, you know, today we have a guest who can weigh in on data, where it's going, how AI plays into that, machine learning, the rest. So, you know, I'm really curious to what he thinks about what's happening. You know, the decisions can't be made, really wise decisions can't be made without data. And the fact that now there's way more data. I've said this to before. I think we're drowning in data, and sifting through the mountain of it and making intelligent decisions is really the critical part. And that's why I wanted to talk to Luke today. Maybe he could shed some light on what's going on with data, big data, how it applies to business, how we can leverage, how we can get a competitive advantage using data, and how to do it right. So he's the guy.
And I'm looking forward to the conversation with Luke. Hey, Ro, before we pull Luke in, I want to give big props to a past guest of ours.
Go for it.
Jim Keys. Hey, Jim, shout out to you, man. Former CEO of Blockbuster and the great 7-Eleven convenience stores. He's adding to his accolades. He wrote a book recently called Education is Freedom. He started the Education is Freedom Foundation. He and I, coincidentally, we kind of grew up in the same part of Massachusetts, so we had some fun banter side by side on that. We learned he was a pilot. Super down-to-earth guy. I definitely recommend that if you want to learn a little bit more about education, being a leader, and not being the victim of a poor environment, you know, don't let that hold you back. It was an inspirational story. Jim, I loved everything that you said. I loved that conversation, and I recommend that people get out there and check out that episode. That was a lot of fun.
No doubt, no doubt. Big props to Jim Keys. Thank you very much. We appreciated your insight. So let's talk about our guest, Luke Komiskey. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correct. And if I'm not, when you come on, Luke, correct me. So, Luke is the founder and CEO of DataDrive, a data consultancy providing managed analytics services. With an ongoing partnership, DataDrive helps growing mid-sized organizations transform their desperate, messy data into insights. And we know all about that, Dave. Working on Amazon, there's a lot of data all over the place, and it can be messy.
Oh, for sure.
Providing both the reporting platform and data team, which is actually the important thing, because if you don't have the guys and gals to look at that data and give you the what's happening, you're in big trouble. Now, the data team for delivering faster, informed decisions. Over the last 7 years, Luke has grown DataDrive into a worldwide team of highly skilled data professionals serving over 150 organizations, including media agencies, public schools, manufacturers, and other companies. Let's welcome to the show, Luke Komiskey.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Luke, how are you?
Thanks for coming on today. Where are you checking in from?
I am calling in today from my home state now of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yay. Big props for those who can endure the 6 to 8 months of winter in Minnesota. My old home state, I used to live there. I went to school, went to college there. My brother still calls Minnesota home. And boy, I don't know how he does it because he's way up there in Duluth. He can see Canada from his house.
I thought you were going to say Santa Claus.
To steal somebody's thunder who could see places from their house. He could see Canada from his house. Not literally, but I guess figuratively. So, Luke, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you coming on to drop some knowledge today. But, before we get started today, I definitely want to jump into a conversation. You heard Dave and I talking about, data and AI and what role it plays. Ori, do we have a clip to get Luke's reaction on? So we'll show you a clip and then we'll talk about it on the other side to kick things off.
Microsoft briefly took over Apple on Thursday as the world's most valuable company. Throughout Thursday's trading on New York Stock Exchange, Microsoft surpassed Apple at multiple points, including when its value reached $2.87 trillion US, and Apple shares fell by 1%. But Apple reclaimed the top spot as the trading day wore on. It is the first time that Microsoft had taken over Apple since 2021. Observers say the stock price surge was led by the company's cloud computing services and investment in AI sector, mainly OpenAI, the developer of ChatGPT.
What do you think about what you just heard?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I think it is, for me, I see that as a testament of Microsoft's forward looking and seeing what AI was going to become and has become for the evolution that's going on. I think so many of the moves that they've made with being an early investor in OpenAI and even being involved in the drama that happened last fall with OpenAI.
That was drama, man.
Yeah, man. It's like probably some of the most intense like 2-3 days of like tech drama that you can ask for. It was pretty incredible. But yeah, it's amazing to see that. I think the types of investments between Microsoft and even throwing NVIDIA in there is that this whole AI revolution is here to stay. And for me, I'm super bullish on what AI is going to provide for organizations and just completely change how companies operate. And selfishly, what I love about AI is that underpinning all of this is having a good data foundation and making sure that you've got sound data that's actually going to give you meaningful insights versus blatant lies.
No doubt. And what's the danger here? I mean, the other side of it is that there's still companies on the sideline, both small and large. But we know that Amazon is also throwing money at the AI game, $1 billion as well. Google, which we would have thought they were going to be the first one to launch a generative AI type of product. They got caught, I would say, like when I say to my son, you got caught sleeping. They got caught sleeping. And this smaller company, OpenAI, with the money from Microsoft, leapfrogged them in some regards. What's the danger here for those companies that say, we're just going to stay on the sideline a little longer before we even touch it?
Yeah, I think the big danger right now with like the AI evolution is that we are still like on this growing curve of like what are the possible use cases we can use for AI and not totally appreciating maybe the hard work that needs to be done behind the scenes for this to actually work at scale. I think for me, like you see ChatGPT kind of hit the world. It goes crazy from everyone in the world's playing around with it. Last year, a lot of the big tech data vendors are starting to advertise all of these generative AI solutions that they're going to be throwing into their tools. And I think we're still just like on that up and up of the popularity curve. And I don't think we fully have the ability to see like what is like AI going to look like after it gets really settled in and we understand more of the nuances of it. I view it a lot like how when the internet rolled out, people got excited about all the potential use cases for the internet, and then we kind of hit this like a trough of, all right, these are some of the shortcomings of what the internet can provide for us, and then we eventually settled into what are those standard use cases that many different organizations can start to participate in. So there is an advantage for organizations to jump in early on this AI train, but it's your mileage may vary of this is going to be a very fast moving platform. And, some of the investments you might make are going to be probably more bets than most companies are used to.
Wow, no doubt. And as you say, I will use your words, things may get overhyped. Internet was overhyped. There are companies that are no longer with us from the .com age, and it was a boom bust, but and made some really bad bets early on. I'm sure that when we're looking at, where are the bets? Where can we place the bets? Because I want to jump into the bets for you. Ori, do we have anything with bets that we can talk about with or roll with Luke here?
I don't think that was the right clip.
That's the wrong
was the
clip.
wrong
This guy's
clip.
a Packers fan. It should have been Go Pack Go.
Yeah, 100%.
Two tech behemoths, Alphabet and Microsoft, with the focus largely on AI.
What I suspect we'll see with generative AI is that it will be a richer, more engaging experience for the users on one side and the advertisers on the other. And so I think there's potential to grow the pie and continue to expand search. Ultimately, it's about driving outcomes for all the participants in the search platform. And so while competition is going to remain fierce, I think what we'll see from Google this evening and over the next year is that search is durable. And ultimately, if they can reinvent it as they've shown that they can historically, I think the business and the broader search platform at Google will remain vibrant with good growth prospects.
I know we're goofing on you a little bit here, given that you're a big Packers fan. You're from Wisconsin. We slipped in a little skull for those that are from Minnesota.
Yeah, it's all right. It's a citizenship requirement of Wisconsin to be a Packers fan for life.
It's a deadly rivalry, Vikings and Packers, and the poor souls that live in Minnesota that are Packers fans. But I guess this year they got the last laugh with a lot of love from Jordan Love.
Yes. Exceeded expectations. So pretty excited for the years ahead.
In good hands, man. I guess the Vikings back to the drawing board. Who knows what happens with our quarterback there? But I digress a little bit, just to poke you a little bit, since you're a Packers fan.
Appreciate it.
But seriously, on the outcomes, this is where I like picking the brains of folks that are in the data side and that in some regards may have some exposure to AI. Even if we get all the data we need, the what I see is the leap we really need to make for business decision makers and others that are taking decisions on data is then what kind of outcomes can we get from this data? So I'll give you an example. We play heavily in the Amazon space, and we buy a lot of ads from Amazon to push the tech products that we sell. The disconnect here is that on one side, Amazon themselves gives you their recommendations, but their recommendations are what's going to drive money for them, impressions, showing product to customers. It doesn't necessarily drive revenue and ROI, but for them, it does. On the other hand, as the business owner, or decision maker, or media agency that's looking at this information for your clients, you want to make a decision that's going to drive revenue, that's going to be ROI positive, that's going to drive sales, not just clicks. And right now, the data doesn't give you insights into saying, hey, media agency, your client is seeing better revenue when they do this because we've found a pattern on what they're doing, or clients or customers are responding. This is where you really need to place your bets. Sort of like what AWS is doing with the NFL, in that there's a 70% chance that you're going to make a touchdown when you're throwing it at the 10-yard line and you're throwing it to St. Amon Ra, or Jordan Love is throwing it from the right side of the field. there isn't that data and outcomes probability yet available within this example, let's say advertising.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge with like those types of use cases is that Amazon probably is only likely very privy to the results that it can see or it's trying to drive. So things like impressions and clicks. Oftentimes, like if you're trying to train an AI model, you also need the outcome data that Amazon may or may not
They
actually
do.
be aware of.
They
Like, okay,
because they own the e-commerce platform in this case, so they know what click drove the buy, right?
okay.
The journey, essentially.
Would Amazon in that case know like the cost of goods sold to like the profit to the customer or your
No,
customer?
they don't know the cost of goods, but they have their own the cost of the ad to generate the sale because they
Yeah.
don't know the cost of the good. But the business owner can they have that information. The
Mhm.
advertising agency can get that information and say,
Mhm.
yeah, this is what it cost you not just to run the ad, but this is what the cost of goods is in relation to the sale that you got because you had to run 10,000 impressions before you get that one sale.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's kind of the two challenges that I think of with AI is one, making sure you've got the whole end to end data. I think some of the big challenges that we see with the media agencies we work with is outside of like a customer isn't privy, or maybe the agency is not privy to the entire journey. So like how many leads it led to, how many sales it led to, how much actual profitability it drove.
Mhm.
It's really hard to connect all of those individual touch points because attribution is already tough. And even if you had attribution, the underlying AI model might not have all that information.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
the second challenge is just having enough data to actually make a decision, right? The NFL is, of course, looking, in the NFL example, they're looking at tons of different or many years of information about like what is the right play to have to occur.
Yep.
But there's also the evolution of the game where the strategies of today's football is quite different. That if you were to run it kind of back in the 1990s, 1980s, it might be a different outcome.
No
And so
doubt.
some of the challenges having a big enough data set and then also being aware of kind of like how far back does AI need to look to try to make the best recommendations of a changing market, right? It's super tough when you talk about marketplaces like Amazon because all of those factors are constantly changing. And so
Yes.
maybe their model is trying to play on the safe side of well, let's lead to impressions because we can look at more near term data that we get to play around with.
All right. And hey, listen, as we're working with companies, we're looking to elevate our businesses, right? Elevate your business into a new era with Global Tech Worldwide, your steadfast partner for over 2 decades. In a world of hybrid and remote employees, where the demand for flexibility is paramount, break free from the chaos and inefficiency of older systems with revolutionary cloud services. As technology evolves, so should your business tools. Global Tech Worldwide is here to guide you through the seamless integration and simplify complexities, ensuring your team not only stays connected and focused, but thrives in the face of rapid technological change. Unlock the full potential of your business communications. Book a no pressure consultation with Global Tech Worldwide today. Check them out at global tech.com. Again, global tech.com. Had to fit that in there. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
Dave. Thank you very much for letting us know about that. And then we pick up the conversation again with Luke in about um, data. So you're saying that attribution obviously is messy because we like here on this podcast, we know that entrepreneurs and different people listen to us and they will go and buy on our Amazon store or they will pick up the phone and call us and want to do a project or consultancy or whatever. But the attribution doesn't link this podcast very well back to that phone call, back to that Amazon store. And Amazon does have attribution, but it's also, again, it's messy because it it may not know that this is where the journey started, right? They may have heard about us and, oh, yeah, we were on Amazon, or yes, we have our own website. And the attribution picks up halfway, essentially halfway in the conversation of the data journey.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's because of that messy attribution, and also many times that customer journey is taking place between a lot of different data sets, a lot of different pieces of software. I mean, that is really where the value of a centralized data system really starts to come into play for organizations that want to potentially leverage a large language model LLM in their own use case.
Yeah. Let me ask you about that because I'm just going to stick with the social media, the media agency side for a moment. Let's say you're a media agency and you're advising clients that are on multiple platforms. You've got your Instagram, you have your Facebook, you've got TikTok. You're trying to leverage the data that's available. Obviously, they all have their own data sets. Is it possible to take data from all those places, combine them, and have AI or data tell you this is where you're winning? Put some bets here. There's a higher probability you're going to win here versus over there.
Yeah, that's absolutely where AI can really start to play a role. I mean, the first challenge for many organizations is bringing all of those various platforms together. And then it comes down to more of the data modeling of making sure that, each social network, each type of advertising channel might have a different way that they're either measuring impressions or trying to break down by various cuts like markets and DMAs. And so all of that goes into really the data modeling behind the scenes of you got to pull that data in from disparate social media channels and traditional media channels, but then also clean it up in a structured way, because AI is one of those things where you can kind of view it as like a printer. You need to like feed the information, but it needs to be all well structured, complete. And this is where like those types of attributes around data like isn't necessarily a common thing within small companies or just any size companies. Is there's a lot of gaps in the data. There's not processes being followed. There's not even consistency between these social media sites to be able to feed the data into something like an AI model to be able to output some of those results that people are looking for. And I think that is where like AI fundamentally is going to highlight the challenges we have had forever, just nobody wants to talk about, with data governance and data quality.
So we need some standards. And I know that especially when you're talking media companies, social media in particular, they have their own definition of like an impression, YouTube versus Instagram versus Amazon, and that the standards there should be some standards so that you can make those comparisons. If you're an advertising company or you're a client of an advertising agency and they come back with this report and say, yeah, on TikTok, you're making 1 million impressions. On Amazon is 10 million. But it turns out that an impression on TikTok is half a second. And on the other platform is a 3-second view, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's those difference in definitions. And this is where that combination of AI and human intuition is always going to have to coexist. I think AI can make recommendations, but then there's also layering in good actionable insights that a human can look at to say that stats like cost per click, cost per impressions. I can layer in my understanding that TikTok is measuring this completely different to make a more holistic recommendation for a client. And so this is when I hear all these like doomsday conversations around AI is going to take all of our jobs.
Yep.
I view it as if you're a marketer, it's the marketers that are going to be using AI are just going to overtake the jobs of marketers that aren't leaning in on AI. It can make your job.
Hold up a second, Luke, because that to me, and we haven't done one of these in a while, but I like that because that sounds like a pro tip. Ori, give us a pro tip.
Get ready for a pro tip.
Luke, tell me why AI is not going to completely take over all the jobs.
Because fundamentally, AI is only going to be able to be as truthful as the data that's being fed to it. And there will always be an element of human intuition that has to come into play. And so for me, AI, using that, marketers who are able to leverage and lean in on AI and make decisions with it in play will be able to overtake marketers who are completely putting their head in the sand when it comes to AI applications.
Well said. I heard Mike Margolis say this. He was being interviewed by Chris Doe, and he said, to add on that, he says that there's 3 things that marketers, businesses, or people will always need, no matter how good AI gets, is the ability to read, write, and speak. Because with those 3 things, you can command the AI, you can make it do better things than what you're doing today, and it just doesn't always get the language, the nuance, the understanding that a good storyteller can tell. You know, and what's the difference between a good story and a great story? And AI doesn't yet have the ability to give you a great story every time you want it to give you a great story, or write a story for me, or something around content. It could do some of it, but it doesn't mean it's going to come out with a great result.
And Luke, you're right. They were, a lot of people are saying, it's this doomsday. They took your jobs. It's gonna come and it's gonna take everyone's job. And we had a guest on, I think it was Kevin King, who said AI is not going to take your job. You might lose your job to someone that knows how to use AI really well, but it's not going to come and just, take your job. We had an article that we were looking at earlier today, and it was from Forbes, and it was about data analytics, and will it be automated by AI in the next few years? Or can you pull up that headline? And I think this was actually written. I think this was written in February of last year, so this is about a year old here. So I'm not sure if you had seen or read this article when it had come out. But how do you see AI strengthening businesses like yours?
Yeah, I think the big thing when it comes to AI applications, when it comes to data analysis, I think what I'm already seeing just from being consulting in this space is that a lot of companies are trying to either write code or do analysis by feeding their data into some kind of AI model to be able to analyze it. And again, I think much like the marketing discussion we had, it's AI can absolutely play a role in finding trends that might have taken a human many different iterations. That if you think about pivot tables that they're doing
Mm-hmm.
to try to find those types of insights, it can handle and automate all of that. And I think that's a benefit for everyone, right? Imagine doing pivot tables a million times faster than you've ever been able to before.
Mhm.
But ultimately, there needs to be a story of, okay, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, and this is what we need to do about it. That AI is just not there yet. And I just don't see a world where it can completely replace that, at least not for the foreseeable future, where it can actually make recommendations that another human's going to have to trust to make that type of action.
Yeah, and things have gotten a lot better in the year that ChatGPT was launched to today. We're a little over a year now into it, and the leaps and bounds have been exponential. Now you can get images and thumbnails and all the rest, and now there's some video being created by AI. We've been testing some of that. It's not great. It's okay, not great. It could do some editing. It's okay. Again, okay, not great. It misses some things, including even on the images. You say, "Hey, give me I want you to generate an image of a person sitting in a cafe drinking coffee." Well, when they're holding the cup, they've got 6 fingers holding the cup, right? Or missing a couple is the other one. So it's some reason that's really seems so obvious, right? But somehow it's either missing the finger altogether or adding too many.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you guys have seen that product where now you can actually add a sixth finger onto your hand. So if somebody were to take a picture of you, you can claim that it was AI generated. It's like a fake sixth finger you can throw on.
Oh, get out. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a way to like maybe cover yourself from any kind of accusation of what you're doing in real life. Is just grab the sixth finger for now.
There you go.
That's pretty true.
Whoever's got that is going to do really well. Six finger person, six finger company. Hopefully you're out there and we'll find you. But yeah, it's amazing where we're going with this. I want to ask you to also clear up a word, a phrase that, for me just it can sound spooky or it sounds just mysterious. What is machine learning?
Yeah, machine learning is another trendy phrase that's been around forever, but I would say over the last decade that's been a big thing in the data space. And in a lot of ways, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, they're all coming from the same family of phrases. But it's the idea that a machine or a computer behind the scenes can be given inputs and start to understand what kind of different paths that it can take, any different decisions that it could take, and what are the types of outcomes that are going to happen from it. If you kind of view as life or any kind of decision as just a maze of yes or no, I did this type of action. Machine learning really simply is just doing the algorithms behind the scenes to help figure out what is the best path that I could take that could get me to the best predictable outcome. It's the same stuff that's happening when AWS comes up on an NFL game and says,
Yeah.
80% of the time this will turn into a good outcome for the team, is because a machine is be able to take past experiences and then run that through the algorithm to say, all right, this is the decision that I would make. And machine learning takes it a step further so that a machine can learn and almost it can make that decision for you so that a human doesn't need to be involved in saying yes or no.
So really the question I was getting back earlier is businesses need more information from machine learning in the same way that the NFL or in the teams in the NFL are getting data to get predictive outcomes, 80% likely that this would be a touchdown, or 10%, or 0%, near zero, and near impossible that you're going to score 10 seconds into a game with a Hail Mary.
Yep. Yeah. And then, to add to that, I think another challenge that I have as a data practitioner is even if you do all the machine learning in the world, if you don't have a solid communicator that's describing the black magic that's happening behind the scenes to these business leaders, they're not going to take that action, or they might trust their gut over the data. And that's always a common challenge of anything when it comes to the business world is people will always overemphasize their experience versus what the data is telling. And so even if you have a machine learning and algorithm that is doing amazing things, the next challenge I always run into is just the pure adoption, or at least a high level data literacy to understand what the decision was and why it was made so that you can feel confident taking the action that needs to happen in the real world.
Well, I guess we're going to be with this bias of humans versus machine learning for quite some time because, I mean, up until last year, I would say most people never either understood or had any experience with a AI generated piece of information from firsthand. Company like you said, machine learning has been around for a while. AI has been in the background for a while. Google's had it for a while. Facebook's had it for a while. But the way it's on the front end been unleashed, I think people's experience and comfort level is going to take several more years before they 100% rely on what's going on behind the scenes. And that's the other piece that I wanted to get your opinion on. When it comes to AI, platforms like Amazon are starting to use it in a way from a seller's perspective. From my point of view, as someone that's selling goods and wares on Amazon, sees that the platform has been changing. For example, you used to see all the reviews, 4, 5, 3, 1, all of them. They're still there, but they're hidden under a search. And now what Amazon's offering up is a summary of all. Let's say you have 1,000 reviews in a summary, in a paragraph or two. And it doesn't always seem to get it right, or the proportionality of the written information is not commensurate with the reviews. So for example, you have 1,000 reviews and 97% are good reviews, it puts one good paragraph and one bad. And the implication there, it's 50-50. So my question to you, when it comes to the way Amazon is evolving with this data and using it and deploying it, what's the potential impact as they migrate away from pure SEO and text-based heavy searches that are on there to a more preferences AI-based type of experience? What kind of impact would that have on businesses that are selling on these types of platforms?
Yeah, I think the first big challenge that I hear is just the I guess the trust in what the data is actually going to output. It's having faith that if you're aggregating up this information, I think humans naturally, this is why spreadsheets continue to exist and why Excel is the best BI tool in the world. Is I think everyone feels much more comfortable when they have all of the individual pieces of data underneath it all, and they might not actually want to dig through it. But I think the biggest challenge that I think AI is going to have in any kind of application is when I'm trying to aggregate this up, what is the right way to describe it to somebody in a summary, but then also maybe understand the more nuances of the human language too. I think some things that I like even run into as I'm doing natural language processing for reviews is I come from the Midwest, so we are all about sarcasm. And so there's a lot of words that we use are like incredibly, they're like, this is sick or this is gross. And it might actually mean the opposite of what it's trying to say. And so I think some of the challenges that we'll continue to see, especially when it comes to like review type data, is understanding more of that human nuance of it and having faith that if a company like Amazon is going to aggregate that up to maybe make that an easy solution, what is the user interface that they're going to create that's going to make it easy for me to maybe test that judgment against some of the granular data underneath. I think humans are going to always be yearning for that for some amount of time, because we can't fully trust the machines to like aggregate this up, right?
Right. And do you think the future, though, there's a lot of discussion among the different folks that I know that are also selling on Amazon and different Amazon sellers. And I'm talking about Amazon because they're pushing a lot more AI tools in the background that nobody sees, and on back end, and they're rolling them out, and they don't really tell you that they're doing, but you could see that. And one of the fears is that what we've known as marketers, as business people for the last 10 to 15 years on how to be successful when it comes to these types of platforms, whether it's ads, marketing, or selling products, that model may not work anymore. And so from your side of things, you're in the data, do you think that companies like Amazon are just going to leverage it because it makes dollars and cents to them, and marketers and business are going to have to adjust? Or do you think they're just going to go with a very slow approach to allow everybody to get used to it? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're going to definitely see. My prediction of this is that these companies like the Google and Amazons will lean in as much as they can to help promote the outcomes that they're looking for. And I kind of say that as a guy that has been digging into SEO a lot with playing the Google algorithm over the last 2-3 years. And the challenges that we see nowadays is that the algorithm and the AI recommendations of how their search is going to work, just much the same like Amazon, they're in the business of making sure that people are spending advertising dollars.
No doubt.
And so if they can create an AI search or AI recommendations that are going to help drive more advertising dollars, I mean, it's hard to believe that a multi-trillion, multi-billion-dollar corporation wouldn't go the route of wanting to promote outcomes that are going to increase their revenue. And this is kind of the nuanced gray area of AI, right? Is they're not technically telling you the wrong data. They're just using AI to help drive, I think, an outcome that's going to be more beneficial for them. And
Right.
you can't really fault them for it, but I imagine
They're the
I think
ones
that's gonna
investing
be
it, right?
the battle. Yeah, 100%.
Uh, when we look at this and we're talking to other business owners in the space and other entrepreneurs as well, one of the things that I'm always asking is, what are we missing here? I know what I know, or I don't know, maybe it was Don Rumsfeld that said, we don't know what we don't know, or something to that effect, right? And what is it that we don't know? What are we missing right now? That when you're talking to different businesses and you're consulting with them, what are we missing here?
I see the biggest challenge of what I do with helping small, mid-sized companies try to get a handle on the data that they're working with. I think people are very excited and or nervous about how AI could play a role in helping create that competitive advantage for them. What I don't think people appreciate is that there is a lot of foundational work that needs to be put in from the data perspective. That fundamentally, a lot of these businesses across America are still running on spreadsheets and humans doing a lot of their manual magic to make that work. And that's not going to be able to scale in an AI driven world. And so my plea to business leaders as I am helping educate on what they're trying to do is a good AI strategy has to start with a sound data strategy. You can't skip that step because AI will always find a way to confidently lie with whatever data that you're giving to it. And more than anything, I think AI has to be built on a foundational good data strategy that also is bringing together all of these disparate applications into one central spot. And it's a foundational piece that just cannot be skipped.
So, Luke, when you're working with businesses, what's one thing that a business should never do when they're starting to analyze data? They're starting to dig into this. They're coming to you. There's a lot of advice. There's a lot of things that they should do, but what's something that they should certainly avoid, at least in the beginning?
I think the things that it's more about inaction than anything, right? I think people who are trying to do that first step of trying to analyze their data, it's a necessary step to maybe start in spreadsheet land and pull in what is interesting to them. I think the biggest challenge I have with business leaders is that they're probably likely not dreaming big enough about what are the data questions that can actually move my business forward. And more than anything, it's just an education of recognizing that things like automation, AI, a lot of the modern reporting platforms that we have out there can unlock unlimited potential within the data. And I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is just not dreaming big enough or seeing an opportunity to maybe even give back time to their leadership, back time to their teams, to not be stuck in Excel spreadsheets that if your Sunday night is full of downloading CSVs to get ready for a leadership meeting the next day, that's not a good use of your team's time to pull that into place and to dream a little bit bigger about what today's technology can actually unlock for your business.
Let's pull the curtain back on that. I love that jumping off point about not dreaming big enough, because then you're telling me I'm in a facility that's dark. Somebody give me the sample. I love using this. Is that I'm in a huge warehouse. The lights are all off, so it's dark, and I'm with a flashlight. I'm only seeing what the flashlight is seeing. Maybe I need a big, huge spotlight, and give me a bigger frame of reference of what's in there and what's going on. Saving time, like you just pointed out, is one way of doing. What other things are possible today that a company can, start saving money in the short run? Like you guys work with them and say, boom, you're not dreaming big enough. Downloading the files, those all could be automated for you. What else are we not dreaming big enough about?
Yeah, the big theme of last year in particular, but it's been an ongoing theme, has been this concept of data monetization within companies. And this is this whole concept that your organization is creating new data points and entering new data points on a daily basis at a growing pace. And what companies don't recognize is that there's actually monetary value with giving that data out to anyone in your community, whether that's customers, vendors, partners, your community. That a lot of our customers that work with us are actually taking the data that their team is creating, the actions that they're doing, the service that they're providing, and be able to provide an external reporting platform that other people in your ecosystem would be willing to pay for. But there's a ton of value in well-structured data, and data can actually be literally used as a strategic revenue-generating asset for the organization. And it can be, for me as a data professional, that where data is often used as a more from a cost center perspective, to be able to be a revenue generating line item is a game changer. And data monetization is, I think, just like very early stage of what companies can even start to do with their data.
Could you take, let's say, like we do, we create a lot of content. We have a bunch of videos and articles and infographics and all kinds of other data. And I'm sure that in the creator economy as well, this is the case, and people are trying to figure out, how do I take what's here and things that I've already put out in the world and make it generate revenue for me? Walk me through that.
Yeah. I mean, that from a data perspective or just
Yes,
general.
no, from
general
data.
content?
What do I do? I mean, I've created a bunch of videos. I've got my processes. I've got employees that do some of this stuff. I've got teams. I've got other stuff. Where do I start? Where do I start if let's say I'm a content creator or my company creates content? How do I go about monetizing that data?
Yeah. I mean, I would think about just like who are people in your ecosystem that would be interested in that data. I think an interesting one that's like in the content creation space that I hear a lot about is that there's actually not much transparency around how certain platforms are performing for individual content creators, or even like podcast views is a pretty like hidden metric that would be interesting in aggregate to sell if you had access to that, or if there's some way that you could expose that data for you as a content creator out to the world, so that another data provider would easily pay for that to like grab those individual data points from you. There's a lot of different, like there's always different spins of partners within your ecosystem that would be willing to use that data more broadly. It's why you see insurance companies want to give you a discount on your insurance bill to put a little tracker device about where you're driving. You're saving 25%, they're making way more than that. and it's all about the value of whatever data you're doing. So like content creation is maybe a little bit tougher because it's more unique to you, but you do have your own individual stats that are interesting to somebody else. But in any other business, I mean, if you're thinking about marketing media agencies, like the type of return on investment that you're getting within that is incredibly interesting to other marketing agencies, if you so choose to go that route. But more specifically to your customers, probably want to know that if I spend $1 of marketing with you, then I'm hopefully getting more than $1 of return back from that.
Indeed. Indeed, and that's the challenge. And I know we talked a little bit about this, about the predictive nature, not just the analysis, but the predictions. Is I think that's where. Do you know of of either models or that are LLM models that are doing this, or machine learning, where you're putting in place almost like, again, an NFL like, or even CIA, because they work a lot in probabilities, right? What's the probability? Because they're spotting patterns. They know human behavior doesn't change wildly. People like to get in the morning, drink their coffee, go to their computer, drive to work. There's a pattern there that millions of people do every single day, that dance from getting up in the morning, going to work, and coming back. How can businesses unlock those patterns when it comes to marketing, advertising, and other things that are there are data, but like you said, it's messy and it's out there.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of like the new battleground that I'm seeing in the data space is this concept of like a data marketplace that's similar to an app marketplace where you have a bunch of apps you can download for your phone, is having a marketplace where there's curated data sets that are available that people are monetizing their data today. I think the little dance we're doing in the data space right now is not everyone can trust these LLMs to make good use of their data. So they don't want their companies copy and pasting their database into ChatGPT to like give them some
Right.
kind of example because you don't know where that data is going. And I think right now we're in the phase of maturity of AI that I think people want to see what are the tools that I can use to make sure that my data is staying safe within my walls because people haven't been as willing to like put their data out there. But of course, there are public data providers and there are data marketplaces out there that you can get things like weather data and traffic data and start to overlay that with your data sets to make interesting outcomes. A really cool use case that we worked with was a pizza chain a very like delivery focused pizza chain trying to understand how can we staff our delivery drivers based off the likelihood of certain weather hitting. And if you think about it in the
Mm.
Minnesota market, it's like if there's a good likelihood that it's going to snow on Super Bowl Sunday, that might change your decision on how many delivery drivers, a very real cost for you, how much you want to make available. So
Mhm.
there's like really just creative ways of like you meet with a business leader who understands more of the nuances and the patterns of their data, but then you can overlay it with like the likelihood of like weather events or whatever applies to your business. That is where it like gets really fun in my space to
Oh,
dream big
that'd be
about
so
the use
cool.
case.
That'd be so cool. So let's make it 10,000 foot view here of this discussion. So I'm an e-commerce seller. There's millions of them in the country and around the world. What's the impact of rain, lots of rain? And then, given that we have such a big geography, right? And e-commerce is national, right? It's not just like, people in Florida or New York. Its impact is national. So if it rains and half of the country is inundated with rain, or the other, we have a cold weather event and now half of the country is blanketed in snow, what is the likelihood that more people are going to order, or less likely?
Yes.
Right. And what should I do? The next step for that is, then how should I price myself accordingly? Because when there's a hurricane in Florida, everybody's buying hammers and nails, and right. So you have to almost know that it's coming. That's a great likelihood that it happen, and then prepare for, hopefully, pricing yourself properly so that you don't run out of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And a big example of that is when a global pandemic hits and people are selling the face mask is there's all of a sudden this huge demand that's coming up. And, depending on what level you want to play with is like, as government mandates are coming on board. Could you price yourself and have inventory ready to take advantage of that demand coming? Because you can totally see that coming. And I think every day there's little micro events in your own little industry that whether it's rain or snow or traffic or natural disasters or celebrity deaths or whatever, a certain NFL team wins that you can take advantage of to get ahead and make a business decision ahead of that. And that is where AI can help you see those patterns potentially if you can input your knowledge into that along the way.
I love it. I'm excited about it. I know that for us, we've been in the e-commerce game for 20 years, and there's 100% patterns every single month, and it's trying to unlock those patterns. Like I was telling you a little bit about it. People get up at or people somehow even within remote work, we've seen some shifts in the day of the week that's become shorter. For example, I'll give you one. Wednesdays used to be longer in terms of how people ordered. And, maybe they started their day and orders would start coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning and go all the way to 8 p.m. That's shrunk. It's condensed on Wednesdays. Fridays, people stop ordering sooner in the day because they're either leaving in the office earlier or not in at all on Fridays. And so those shifts in patterns have shifted a little bit of how we operate and try to target customers. But again, spotting those patterns can be interesting, and having a way to grab all that information and say, hey, Wednesdays, shorten your ad spend, maybe on Google, day part it or schedule it between 8 and 3. And then on Fridays on the summer, it's even shorter, so spend less on Fridays because there are no orders coming in at 7 p.m. at night anymore. Everybody's out and partying and doing the barbecue, especially in Minnesota, where summers are valuable. And so Fridays, you're out by noon. You're done.
Yes, for during the 3 or 4 weekends that we get of good
weather. Look, we want to do something really fun now that we're lightening it up a little bit. We have something that we call rapid fire. Ori, hit me up with that rapid fire segment. All right, these are just phrases and words, and we just want to know what hits your brain when you hear this word or phrase that Dave and I are going to tell you. There's no right or wrong answer. Your answer is the right answer, okay? So I'm going to kick it off with something really simple. Walmart versus Amazon.
Value.
Ooh, all right.
All right. Okay. What is your favorite social media platform?
Ooh, LinkedIn.
Okay.
All right. Favorite piece of tech?
Easy. AI.
I guess it would be no other.
Yes.
First thing you reach for in the morning?
Unfortunately, my phone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
A lot of us do.
Yeah. You're not at fault. We ask this question a lot, and that's usually the case. That's the winner amongst a lot of guests. Now, you may or may not have an answer for this, but whatever you it's fine. Favorite podcast?
I have a lot of podcasts I listen to. One of my favorites is the Tropical MBA.
What is that? What is it?
It is a podcast that I think is a mix of more entrepreneurs that are probably, I would call, like sub 10 million. But what I love about it is it's got a digital nomad spin to it. And as a former digital nomad building dashboards in Southeast Asia, it helps me relive those days.
Nice. I'm going to have to check that out. This is why we asked this question. You don't know what you don't know. And this is definitely one that sounds very interesting. Have you heard of Stephen Bartlett, by the way?
Name sounds familiar.
Diary of a CEO.
Okay, yes.
Super fascinating. So that's what I would pass on to you if you're checking out new podcast, Diary of CEO. If you're into the entrepreneurship and growing and learning and new things that are happening, he does a lot of a little bit of everything when it comes to that.
That's amazing.
In his podcast.
All right. And the last one here, what's a game-changing book that you've read that's influenced you?
Ooh, a book that recently came out that I'm sure is a popular option is called The Gap in the Gain. And it caught me at the right time in my own entrepreneurial journey because as the title would suggest, it is about how as humans, we naturally measure the gap of where we are versus where we need to go instead of looking at gain thinking of where we've been, where we started and where we're at now.
And we have it. If you're listening on the audio side, we're featuring, there we go. He's holding it up in his hand, and Amazon also has that book. So you can go out and check that book out. It's got pretty good reviews. It's 4.7 on Amazon, published in 2021. It says it's The Gap in the Gain, the High Achiever's Guide to Happiness, Confidence, and Success. Love it. That sounds great. And this is enriching. This is why we ask these questions. I want to learn more. Luke, if people wanted to reach out to you, you said you're on LinkedIn. What are some other ways that somebody can get in touch with you? They want to know more about you or what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely research more about what we do at DataDrive at godatadrive.com, godatadrive.com. I'm also, as you mentioned, very active on LinkedIn and would love to connect via direct message. Or if you want to submit a contact us form on a website, I will be the one that probably emails you back. So would love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Luke, for joining us today. And sharing your valuable knowledge. I'm really appreciative because there's a lot of stuff here that I'm going to take back to my team and let them know that maybe we need to look at a little bit more and dig in. Maybe we're not dreaming big enough. I love that phrase. You don't mind if I steal that? Maybe trademark it or something.
Yeah, please do. Attribute it to me, though.
I love that. That's great. And if you've been nerding out with us about this episode today, I want to let you know that we have other great speakers like the great Kevin King that was mentioned earlier, and why AI thinks that people like to eat out of slow feed dog bowls. It is absolutely hysterical. But if you go in and check out the episode we did with Kevin King, wherever you consume your podcast, you'll not only get a kick out of it, but you'll learn why Kevin King is the master at direct marketing and things like Amazon. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you the next time. And for those that are watching us on YouTube, I've got a couple of videos up here, right over here where my hand is at. Dave and I are in those videos. And if you want to learn how to grow your business faster, we will join you in those episodes. We'll see you then.